Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with Lillian Ogbogo.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever in the world you are, and welcome to another special episode of the Shine Out Loud Show with me, Lillian Ogbogo. Now, today we are talking plastic fantastic, we're talking dolls to inspire, and we're talking none other than Bianca and Friends, created by Charlotte Francis, a woman who took on a mission to create dolls that reflected little princesses as they are, little black princesses, to see themselves, love themselves, and know themselves. After an encounter with her baby CEO, and I'm going to let her tell her story. This is an amazing journey of creating identity awareness, love, and diversity in the doll community, but also in what we bring home to our homes for our young children. So join me and welcome the incredible, amazingly talented Charlotte Francis. Hi, Charlotte.
Thank you so much. Hello, thank you. I'm so grateful to be here today.
You're so welcome. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited for the conversation that we're going to have today.
Awesome. Okay, so we're talking about dolls, and people are going to be like, dolls, self-love, how is that a connection and a thing? So what was the reason that made you say, I'm going to leave my career as a math teacher to start creating dolls?
Well, I'll take you back to the beginning, because it's probably, that's the easiest place to start. And
of course.
I think that this was always going to be my purpose. I mean, if I take you back to way before that, to when I was growing up, I did grow up and have identity issues. You know, the area I grew up in, there wasn't very many people that looked like me, that had my hair texture, and I really struggled. I really struggled with that in school. I am a very introverted, shy person anyway, and those insecurities really didn't help, to get over those fears and insecurities that I had. So, right. When I had my daughter, you with your children, you always want them to be, the better version of yourself. So I was over the moon that she was a lot more confident than I was growing up, a lot more extroverted and confident. She could walk in a room and talk to anyone. So right. When she started school, I didn't really have any worries that she wouldn't be okay. She walked into the school gates on her first day and didn't even look back at me, So I was like, right, this girl's going to be fine. And that's why I was really, really shocked when she came home. It must have been a few months into starting school, and kind of started questioning little questions here and there. So one of the things she'd ask was, why is she brown? And then it started to get a bit more serious, and she started saying things like she didn't like her hair anymore, and why did it have to be curly, and why couldn't it be straight and yellow? Right. And from that point, I was like, right, this is a problem, because those are the things that I was feeling in school. It was just like history repeating itself. So I was like, right, we need to make some changes. We need to get, some external influences in to help her love, the beautiful assets that she has. So we did a few things. I signed her up to a Saturday school that kind of embraces African and Caribbean culture, which is amazing. She still attends that. We got books in. I put up artwork around the house that kind of empowers, black women and embracing yourself. And then I was like, right, let's go and get some black dolls. So naively, we just marched down to the local toy store and went in there. And this toy store was huge, massive. Rows and rows and shelves of toys, dolls, everything. And I couldn't find one black doll. I asked, there's nothing here. I think in the end I found one, literally one doll. I think it was a Barbie doll, and she had dark skin, but she had long straight hair. and just wasn't sending the message that, you know, that we were trying to, but I was trying to send across to my daughter. So I left the toy store and I thought, do you know what, this is ridiculous. I then went online and I noticed in America they have more of what we were looking for, but as soon as I put them into the shopping basket, and put the postage on, it was like I think one company was charging like $100 just to ship it here, and I was like, obviously that's ridiculous as well. So we went home and we went and watched Moana, the Disney movie Moana, and yes. I literally, I tell no lie, this is what happened. We sat down, we were watching Moana, and my daughter was captivated by it, and all of a sudden all of these ideas started coming to me. I was like, okay, we could make our own black doll. And by the way, I have no background in the toy industry at all. So I had no idea how I was going to do this, but just the name came to me, what she would look like, what she would represent. And that is literally it. After the film finished, I came home and I thought, I need to jot this down. I need to start sketching something or getting some ideas onto paper, which I did. My daughter, Callie, she kind of said, Mummy, what are you doing? So I explained to her what I was doing, and she literally sat down next to me on the floor and started sketching as well. And those initial sketches we still have. In fact, I have them up on my my kitchen door just to remind us, you know, where this all started. And from there it's been a long journey, a difficult journey, but we now are the owners of our own black doll brand.
Okay, that's a very inspiring journey. And I think, you know, let's look at it for what it is, because you came home after being inspired by Moana. And I think, you know, let's give credit to that movie, because not only was it a black of color, an ethnic cast and an ethnic story being told, it was actually the voices were of ethnic background as well.
Yes.
So I think we have to give credit to that movie. So Disney did something right there. You know, so definitely give credit. Now, the name Bianca and Friends, why did you choose Bianca?
I've always been interested in Egyptology, and I've visited Egypt, and you know, I've done all of the excursions and the visits to the tombs and the pyramids, and you know, I did a whole week-long kind of expedition, and I was definitely drawn to Egypt and the history, and I've always also been drawn to the Egyptian Ankh, which is an Egyptian symbol. And again, the name just came to me, like, you know, Bianca spelt with the Egyptian Ankh. And the Ankh is a feminine symbol, and it represents eternal life. And, you know, women are the givers of life, and, you know, very powerful. And I just thought it was very fitting. You know, Bianca is a cute name, but it also has that special meaning in the way that I spelt it as well.
Okay, I like this. You know, and I saw that, you know, and I looked at the symbol and I said, okay, this is really special, and I do like that. You know, so you have the name, you have your first sketches that you and your junior CEO created. What were the first steps that you took to actually bringing her to life?
So I had to then do a lot of research. As I said, my background is not in the toy industry. My background is my degrees in psychology, and I'm a maths teacher. Still am currently a maths teacher as well as running this business. And you know, so the research, I had to sit down, I had to make phone calls, I had to send emails. That was very difficult in itself because of manufacturers being abroad, the time difference, you know, people they were promising things. Yes, we can do this. And then they might send a sample and it was, you know, nothing that they had promised. The safety aspect of the toy industry, I had to go down that route. And I finally whittled it down to about 3 manufacturers that I felt drawn to, and I felt that I could trust as much as I could without actually meeting these people. And I finally made a decision to go with the final manufacturer. But what it was, what they were offering me in terms of a black doll, I mean, you can go to, you know, foreign manufacturers, and there is a few black dolls about, but she still didn't look how I envisioned Bianca to look. So what I had to do was go through the process of having a mold made. Now, getting a mold made is, number one, very expensive, and two, very time consuming. So this has all gone on over the past 2 years, and there was a lot of back and forth between myself, graphic designers, and manufacturers to get this mold correct. So what I wanted for Bianca, I wanted her to kind of look childlike. So I didn't want her to be heavily made up, which I find a lot of other dolls are, because obviously my target audience, they don't need to be worrying about makeup and things like that at the moment. So I didn't want her to be heavily made up. I wanted her to have a cute look. She's got freckles as well, so which I think makes her quite cute. And then the hair as well, the hair texture, we had to go back and forth with hair texture and stuff as well. So it took, I think in the end, probably took about 9 months to actually get that mold made, and to get her to look how she does now, basically. So they were the initial steps. And I'm saying it like it was, it was quite straightforward. It really wasn't. There was a lot of up and downs during that time. There was a lot of tears from me, and there was a lot of sleepless nights as well. But, we got there in the end. So what is really special about the mold is that mold, basically, it belongs to my daughter and I, and no one can replicate Bianca now. So, that how she looks, that is her.
Okay, so that's your intellectual property.
That is, yeah.
Okay, and that's actually a good question, because, more and more women are stepping into the entrepreneurial industry area. And how do you protect your intellectual property? Have you gone down the road to actually patenting Bianca? Are you looking to ensure that all of those things are protected, or is something that you've already looked at?
Yeah, so again, one of the things I found really difficult with this whole process is, again, not knowing anything about intellectual property. Again, having to make so many phone calls and emails to find out, what I had to do legally, where I stood. And to be honest with you, there are a lot of grey areas still within that industry. So I have copyrighted, I've copyrighted the brand and our mission statement, and as I said, I have the mold, but it's very difficult because the more things you bring out, so the more I've also animated Bianca, so I've had to kind of copyright that, but every time I change the look of her, or when I add in friends, because the business is called Bianca and Friends, then I'll have to add that on top of it. And again, this all costs money as well. So, it's like an unlimited amount of money is needed to copyright things. And, it's good to get probably a solicitor behind you as well, to give you advice. But again, that all costs money. And, when you're a startup business and you're doing it on your own, those are definitely barriers to protecting yourself, because especially if you have no knowledge about kind of what you're doing and you're learning as you go along.
Okay, so it's been a steep learning curve and you're still learning. And the one thing that you're saying is that, yes, it is an expensive adventure, but it's definitely worth making sure that you have all your legal protection in place.
Definitely. I've had some lovely people kind of that have given me advice for free as well, which has been really lovely of them. But I've just been fortunate that I've come across those people, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't interested in helping you unfortunately as well. So, but it's definitely a must. It's definitely something you have to do, and at least know what the plan is with it. Another thing I did as well, before I'd mentioned anything about the dolls, I was very, very careful of who I spoke to, and when I did speak to someone, I always got them to sign an NDA. Okay. Which is a non-disclosure consent form, basically. So in signing that, no one can kind of take your idea and pass it on or use it for themselves, basically. So that was something I could do for free, and is very important in protecting yourself. So if anyone's thinking of, has an idea or something, definitely always get an NDA signed beforehand, I would say.
All right. So, and it shows that basically that you are in this for the long haul. You want to make sure you are protected and you are growing your business. Now, you've gone the 9 months. Bam, Bianca is born. What was the first reaction to her when you brought her home, or when she was delivered to your home?
Those 9 months were for the mold. Actually, it then took another year to get the clothing right, packaging, physically making her as well. So it wasn't until March this year when I officially launched my social media pages and said, "Look, guys, this is what I've been doing." Now, I'll be honest, I was so scared to do that. And in actual fact, I wouldn't have even mentioned Bianca until I physically had her in my hand, if it wasn't for a business mentor. So I invested in myself, basically, and in the business to get a business mentor. Okay. And she really encouraged me to start talking about Bianca before she was ready for market. She said, you have to do this, you have to raise awareness. And I was really petrified about what people would think. I thought people would think, is Charlotte adequate to do this? Like, why does she think she can do this? But I was really wrong. I was so wrong. I had no negative reactions. In fact, everyone was so supportive. They were amazing. They were like, this is so needed. It's an amazing idea. And in doing that, that really helped to boost my confidence in thinking, I am doing something that's really worthwhile and is really needed.
Okay. So, looking at the toy industry and, being a mom, just even stepping outside of your role now as a creator, do you think that the traditional toy manufacturers should have looked at creating more diverse dolls sooner? Or was the market waiting for people like you to actually come along and turn it on its head?
I've spoken to so many adults at events I do, and they look at Bianca and they say, "I wish I had this when I was younger." So this was needed years ago. Barbie was created in 1959. 60 years ago, and and it's only now that they're starting to kind of produce diverse and ethnically diverse dolls. And it always makes me question, why now? There's been Black people in this country for centuries. Like, why now do you feel that it's important to have these dolls? And I don't think they really feel that it is important for young girls to have dolls. It's more, it's a business to them, really, because otherwise they would have done this from a long time ago. So, Bianca is here to basically turn that on their heads. Our dolls will be ethnically diverse, but she'll come in all different skin tones. That's why it's called Bianca and Friends. So our initial doll, Bianca, is as she looks, but she will have her friends that come along, both male and female, in all different hues, hair textures, to represent the Black community as it is.
Okay. I like that. I like that it's not just you're keeping it to one mold or one gender. And because we do need dolls that reflect young princes, young Black boys to show themselves as more. So that's really amazing. And, we're talking about the industry, and you're right. It's almost like what happened when Rihanna produced Fenty, and all of a sudden there was this wave of, look, we have colored makeup too. We have makeup for your shade, and Rihanna is like, don't worry, I got this. But
exactly.
It's funny, and it took Rihanna to kind of burst that bubble, because at the time there were a lot of independent brands creating makeup for ethnically diverse individuals, but she came along and said, let me make this mainstream. So I think what you're doing is actually saying, let me make this mainstream, let me stand up and be seen.
Yes, exactly that.
And that's really amazing, because yes, we know, and I didn't want to name names because we know that the mainstream industry have their token friend in their group. They have the token doll, and you're like, really, you just gave her a tan.
Yeah.
And I think I learned a new word yesterday, which is something that's happening on the internet, where it's called blackfishing. And I just think what the mainstream industry are doing is blackfishing, is dressing up their dolls to look black. That's all I think it is.
Yes.
So yeah. I was like, that's a phrase and that's a thing. So yes, we won't go into what that is, but seriously, go ahead.
Sorry, also as well, I mean, a big argument that not just people directly in the toy industry, you know, not just manufacturers, but also toy shops, their excuse in the past for not even stocking or you know, wanting these dolls on their shelves is because there's not a market for it, which I find that very difficult to believe. You know, there's over 3 million black people in the UK alone. That's at one point, all of those people were children. You know, that's 3 million children that would have loved a doll to have looked like them. And what my issue with it is it's not that there's not a market for it. It's not that there's not a want or a demand for it. It's that they're not marketing it properly. So for instance, you know, you look on TV and you look at the toy adverts. I'm yet to see one with a you know, a black doll or something directed towards black children. You know, you go outside a toy store and there's nothing in their windows that says, you know, we have black dolls here, or, you know, there's ethnically diverse toys here. And I think parents get to a point where they just give up. They don't go into toy stores anymore and say, have you got any black dolls? Because they know they're not going to find them there. And it's the marketing of it that is so important. Like everyone knows, you know, you could think of the most ridiculous item, and if you market it well, it's going to sell and it's going to be popular. And, you know, so if you're not marketing that these toys exist even, or then there's not going to be the demand for it because people are they're not going to know that it exists. So my point is that the money that you put into all of these other toys, you need to put them into, you know, the toys that are coming forward as well, including Bianca, and, you know, and shouting out about it so people know that it exists. Because if it doesn't exist, then it probably does look like, you know, it's not wanted, but that is not the case.
You know, that's absolutely true. And the marketing, and I bet, you know, some of them will still point to the old sociology experiment where where you had this group of kids and all the little kids seemed to choose the white doll over the black doll as another reason and justification for them not stocking black dolls because children don't want it.
Yes, and again, like the psychology behind that, even, you know, that experiment as well, you have to dig deeper and say, why don't they want it? And it's because they haven't seen it. And, you know, the media portrays the black community in a certain way. And, you know, the psychology behind it is so important. You know, the first 6 years of a child's life is called, they go through something called enculturation. And that is where they learn their place in the world. They learn their place in society within the family. That's where their self-esteem is built up. And if they are constantly bombarded with, you know, things that don't look like them, things that don't represent them, that subconsciously tells them that who they are is not enough and is not important. So, you know, by the time they get to 6 years old, 7, 8 years old, they've already got this programming that, you know, black is not beautiful because it's not seen anywhere. You know, your hair type is not normal because it's not catered for, seen anywhere. And that then forms, you know, the person that they become, and the love for themselves. And, you know, if they don't love themselves, then they're not going to choose the black doll in front of them. So that's why we have to encapture them from a much younger age. You know, I want to get into nurseries and primary schools when they're during this very sensitive age to introduce, you know, our dolls into those environments. And it's not even just the black children that need to see this, it's the white children as well, for this, you know, to become normal. For, you know, it's important for a little white girl to be able to go out and get a black doll and to have at home to play with as well, because that is what society looks like. You know, it's that is where they're growing up and what they live in. And, you know, if they have black friends at school, I'm sure that they'd want a doll to represent their friend as well when they're playing at home.
And that's so true. And I think it's we normalize it and stop making it it's a black doll, rather it's a doll for children that happens to be black. I think we need to get to that point that it's a doll for children. She is also a black doll, and it shouldn't be the other way around, that the shock value is, oh my God, it's a black doll.
Definitely not. Once things become normalized, and then it becomes accepted, and then our children will feel accepted and loved, and and that in turn increases their confidence.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. And in saying that, in the same breath, I'm going to play devil's advocate, because, some of us out there will be saying, "Hey, I played with other dolls as a kid. It didn't impact me. It didn't, impact my view of myself as a black woman or of a woman of an ethnic minority. Why is there a need for this now?" That could be the other conversation going on out there.
From the conversations I've had with adults, it might not have harmed them to have a white doll, but from all of the conversations I've had with every adult that I've come in contact with, every single one has said, "I wish I had this when I was growing up." And I think it depends on the person as well. It depends what other influences you had in your life, and I'm not saying that a black doll is gonna change the mindset of somebody, but this has to be a community thing. So like I said, with my daughter, she's gone on this transitional journey now. So she started 2 years ago coming home and saying that she dislikes her hair, and she wants it differently. But by introducing her to books, to art, to sending her to this Saturday school, to having her involved heavily with this whole, thing that we've created, she has made a huge transition. She now loves her hair. She's a massive advocate for who she is. She'll go to school. She goes to a predominantly white school. She's taken in our dolls. She's taken in Bianca. She's taken in books to do it show and tell. And she'll she'll stand in front of her predominantly white class and say, "Look at this. This is what I'm proud of. This is who I am." I've just helped her to clean out her bedroom just before this interview, and I found drawings, and she loves going onto YouTube and doing art tutorials. So What she's done, she's gone on and found out how to draw afro hair, and I found a little design that she's done. She's drawn a girl with afro hair, and on her dress it says, "I love my afro." And no one can tell me now that she is not going to grow up into a self-loving, confident adult. And we all know what happens, as an adult, the prejudices that we're up against, whether they're direct or indirect. And those things, I can't foresee those things changing for now. But what we have to make sure is that our children are equipped and resilient in dealing with those situations, and can deal with them in a sophisticated, mature way. And that's not going to happen by sitting back and letting them play with things that don't represent them, and not being around things that don't represent them, because they need that, they need that confidence.
Yeah, I absolutely commend you for that. And we're looking more and more. There seem to be more and more innovators coming out who are creating, items geared towards children of color, more toys that are for little boys. We have authors now writing for little boys and little girls. Now, what other innovators or innovations geared to children of color have you seen that has grabbed your attention?
I recently met a really wonderful mother again. She's owner of a company called Pigment Perfection, and they basically make kind of stationery and badges and things to help children embrace, again, who they are, their heritage, their culture. So that is a really lovely little company that's, basically on the same mission as us as well. There is another doll company, and another thing I'm a massive advocate of is sisterhood and raising each other. People will probably look at me and think, why would you be promoting another doll company when you're talking about yourself? But I think it's so important that we have the choice out there, and we're not going to be able to do this separately. We have to unite and help each other to the top. So another wonderful mother again, has made a doll called Nia Ballerina. So it's basically a black ballerina, and she also makes music, musical jewelry boxes with a black ballerina inside as well. So there are people doing wonderful things out there. We just need to hold hands, and we're stronger in numbers, basically.
I absolutely agree. Maybe Bianca and friends could create a list of where we can find all this other, people who are creating for our children. And because we are, even for those of us who may not have kids or have kids who are older, they have nieces, nephews, they have little ones, and it's coming up to gift giving season. So if we have a place where we can go, oh yeah, they make for this and they make for that, I think that would be really amazing to actually see.
Yes, no, definitely. You're definitely right. There are a few companies as well that, or a few businesses that are directed into doing that. So there's the Black Business Directory, the Voice newspaper as well. They've recently done a magazine of all of the black businesses or a lot of the black businesses in the UK, and they've got an event coming up in December where, there'll be everyone kind of concentrated in one area, so you can just go and do your Christmas shopping there. And you're buying from black businesses aimed at a black audience as well.
Okay, that's actually quite good. And speaking of events, you were recently at the Black Girl Fest. What got you interested in actually attending that?
So again, everything that they stand for, empowering black women and black people. It was amazing to be around so many innovators and, again, people with the same mission. So even if it's not directed, mainly at children, children become adults. And if they go through their lives having access to all of these things that we didn't have growing up, at the end result is only going to be amazing, basically.
Okay. All right. So here's my question. If you had someone to turn around and say, you know what, Charlotte, I want to follow in your footsteps, what's the first advice you would give them?
I would say you have to take risks, although, they should always be calculated risks. So if you have a dream and you have something that you think is worthwhile, definitely me getting my idea down onto paper, it sounds insignificant, but it was so instrumental into taking the next step. So physically seeing what I wanted to do and brainstorming, and then, as I said, sticking it on my kitchen wall, on my kitchen door, and just being reminded every day, look, remember you've got this to do. Remember this is something that you need to do. Very important. So whatever's in your head, get it down onto paper first of all. Okay. I would also say, definitely reflect on your wins and your losses as well. But one thing that I'm not great at is I'm quite hard on myself, basically. So I recently had a conversation with someone else in the industry, and I was like, this bit isn't working for me, and I'm not able to get anywhere with this route that I'm taking. And then they had to remind me, I've only actually been in business for, I think it's about 10 weeks now, and they will basically look at the things that you've achieved so far. And it took that to remind me, you have to sit back sometimes and look at what you've achieved so far, and to remind yourself that, of how great you're doing. So it's really important to reflect on your wins. And I would definitely say it's really important to invest in yourself. So I did, as I said before, I invested in a business mentor, and something I couldn't really afford financially at the time, but I took, again, that calculated risk to employ her, because I don't have a background in business, but she was so important in, one, helping me with the business side of things, but also the encouragement, keeping me accountable for the things that I said I was going to do, and just to be that ear, that voice in the background, basically your own little cheerleader in the background telling you to, you can do this and this, push forward. And that was so important as well. And the last thing I'd probably say, and this was one of the biggest difficulties I had, as I said before, I'm actually a very introverted, shy person. And
Right.
when I first started this journey, I probably naively, again, I didn't think that I'd have to be out there and my face would have to be out there with it. I just thought, I'll make this doll and, and she will sell. But nowadays, the people want to know who is behind the brand. And
Yes.
I kind of hid behind that for a while. And I find it so difficult, speaking with people and being out in the open. And one of the things I've kind of trained myself to do now is to say yes and then deal with my own internal insecurities afterwards. So, for example, I've been approached in the past to do a public speaking event, which absolutely fills me with dread. But what I do now is if someone invites me to do something like that, I say, yes, I can do it. And then I go away and deal with, my internal turmoil afterwards. And then go up and show up to the event and do it, because, you can't let things like that hold you back. And I still really struggle with it now, but in practicing and doing those things, I definitely have improved, and it's definitely helped me with my confidence. But as I say, it's a work in progress, but I hope in 10 years time, I'll love public speaking and things like that.
You know what? I have to admire you, because despite the fear you feel, despite everything, you're like, yeah, I'll do it. I just don't know how, but I'll do it. So kudos to you, because I think that's actually very amazing.
Thank you.
I think a lot of us take ourselves out of the running or out of contention before we even get started, because we are thinking about, oh my God, how would I be perceived? Can I do this? And you actually say yes before your doubts kick in.
Yeah. And saying that yes isn't, it still isn't easy, but it's definitely something that's worked for me. From now on, you say yes and then you deal with it afterwards. And it has worked for me. It has.
Awesome. That's really amazing. So, you're a mom, you're still a teacher, and you have this business that you're building from the ground up. How do you balance everything? How do you balance motherhood, your time, your day job, and growing the business?
Again, I'd say this is definitely something I struggle with. And it's your organization skills have to be, they have to be, top of the top, basically. So another thing that I've invested in, and from investing in this one item, I think from now on I will have one of these in my life every single year. It's something called a passion planner.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you've heard of it before, but there's other ones on the market as well. But I really love how Passion Planner lays out their planner. It's basically a year-long planner, and it helps you to set targets. So like you end up setting a 3-month, 6-month, a 1 year and a 3-year target. Okay. It helps you to kind of dissect those into areas that you have to accomplish in order to hit those targets. And then it even then breaks it down kind of into a week by week place where you can set targets to get to your ultimate goal. And with me, I love like doodling and and making things look pretty. So the passion planner really works for me, because I'll set out my week on a Sunday evening. I'll sit down, I'll write down all my targets for that week, all the things that need to be done. And literally my life is, at the moment, it's lived by clockwork. I get up at a certain time, things have to be done by, within an hour. And then, my whole day is very regimented. And again, that can take a toll on your health. I mean, the last 2 weeks, I've had a bit of a scare, health-wise and stuff. And I have had to slow down a little bit over the past 2 weeks. So it's not easy to balance everything. But if you're strategic with it and you're organized with it, and also remembering to put yourself first. So that's one thing I've learned over the last 2 weeks. Your own happiness and well-being is very important. And from, what's happened over the past couple of weeks with myself, I've decided moving forward that from now on, I am only going to do things that serve me and my health, as well as everyone else as well. But, aside from that as well, my daughter has a very active life and social life as well. So again, organisation, she does a lot of clubs and, after school, a lot of play dates, a lot of parties,
Right.
homework, keeping up with all of that is so difficult. But again, it comes down to organisation. And, that's not to say that I don't have, serious mummy guilt at times, when I put her to bed and then I have to start working again. It's really, really difficult, but I'm really fortunate that she's also so understanding, and she gets what we're doing and, what the mission is, and that it won't be like this forever.
Right.
Once I've got to the place where I need to get to, it won't be like this forever.
And that's really, I think, the fact that you're bringing in, as you call her, your young CEO into the business and into the process, so that she understands what is being created, is actually, it is actually quite important, because you're not just helping her recognize herself in the product, but actually recognize her abilities to become the next entrepreneur.
Yes, I'm so, from the beginning, I'm so aware and conscious that she's constantly watching. Not just her, every child, they soak up what their adults show them. I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and who we are as people today, all of it can be stemmed back to your childhood. What was shown to you, what wasn't shown to you. Another thing that I'm very passionate about is, young girls, especially being, financially literate as well. So it's making sure that they know how to be financially literate, know that they can own a business and run a family and, be anything that they want to be, because, once they start having self-doubt and those reservations, that's when the insecurities creep in and, the confidence issues creep in. And I don't want that for my daughter, so involving her in the business has been one, instrumental in, regaining her love for herself, but also to show her, what can be created if you put your mind to it.
And that's just, I think that's it. I think that is what you want for her to have. And I think you're doing that quite well. And I am looking forward to actually buying one of the Bianca dolls for friends, because I unfortunately have no nieces.
Do you know, I have a lot of adult customers as well, believe it or not. So I have a lot of adults that buy for themselves. So, it's not just children. If, you might want one for yourself.
This is true. This is true. I may have outgrown my passion as a child for taking the heads off my dolls. So I wasn't allowed to have dolls after a certain while. So I may get myself one. I used to decapitate all my dolls. Don't ask me why. It was a thing.
No, everyone said that is a common thing. Like, lots of adults have also said to me that, and trying to curl the doll's hair when they were younger as well. If they had a Barbie or a Cindy or whatever, they would try and cut the hair and then try and curl it and burn, even burning hair and stuff. So we've come on from those times now. So yeah.
Oh boy, yeah, there's times where interesting. I had this walking, talking doll, and I couldn't figure out why it was talking, and I couldn't logically think about why and how they did it, and so I took her apart trying to figure it out, and I could never put her back together. That was my thing.
So then you were banned.
Yeah, I was banned from owning dolls. I was given a doll ASBO and said, no dolls for you. So what drives your creativity, aside from wanting your young CEO to see herself, aside from wanting other young girls to see themselves? What drives you to create?
I've always been a very creative person, I'd say, and a very artistic person. One great thing about the role that I've created and what I'm doing is I get to kind of, in a selfish way, I get to kind of tick all of those boxes about what I'm passionate about. So right. I am passionate about maths, so I get to do, you know, the math side of the business. I'm really passionate about designing and creating. I get to sit down and design her clothes and design what she's going to look like. You know, I've also discovered let's not say discovered, it's kind of re-emerged my love of writing. So when I'm doing my social media posts, I really find comfort and calmness in writing. So I've really rediscovered that as well. So part of the drive of my creativity is probably from a selfish point of view, as I say, because I just love doing it. I really love doing it. But behind the dolls as well, and it's not just dolls. I've also created an animation as well, which I'm really excited about, which should hopefully be put into to action next year. It's knowing that this mission and purpose is bigger than just myself and my daughter. You know, right. There's so many little girls out there and boys that need this, that need these messages consistently, across growing up. As a teacher, I work in a secondary school, so I work with teenage girls. And right. So I see, what happens on the other end when you don't have self-respect and you don't have self-love and you don't have confidence. I see the end result of that. And then those girls then leave us to go into the community, into society, and then have to, are expected to contribute and to build. And, if those broken people are going into society, then, it's not gonna go the way that we need it to go. So, Bianca and everything that she stands for is basically there for every little girl to grow up knowing that she's important, so then she can go on to do amazing and great things, for themselves and for our community as well.
That's amazing, and that just answered the question of what you want your legacy for Bianca and Friends to be. I think that is an amazing legacy to actually start putting in place.
And I think we'll see a turnaround, we already are, slowly, people are starting to embrace their natural hair. Mm-hmm. There's events popping up for people of colour. Yes. And I always think back to, myself when I was in school and all of the difficulties I had. And if I'd had just, a few of these things to attend or to read even or to see, I would have grown up differently. I would have been a different adult, I believe. And it's so, so important. So, yeah, my legacy, I hope, is to for every young girl of colour, and every young girl across the world, to know that they are as important as the next girl, and to have, high aspirations, to know that, they can achieve anything despite having obstacles in their way. They'll have that resilience to push forward.
Okay, I think that's really admirable. And looking at Bianca and Friends, do you intend or envision down the line giving Bianca a full family background at some point?
Definitely. I have designed a family. So I have designed that and the accessories to go with them, which I'm really excited about as well. But as I say, it's taken 2 years to get the first 2 dolls to market. Hopefully the rest won't take that long because, I've been through that process now. But yes. I have massive plans for the company. It's not just dolls, there's a lot of other things going on as well. And hopefully, as a company, I hope that we can ensure that every angle is met. Every angle is met in ensuring that our young people feel loved and appreciated and accepted.
Awesome. Now, we've gotten to that point in the show where we have our So Loud moment of the week. So, Charlotte, what is your So Loud moment of the week?
My So Loud moment, I think I need to give a shout out to a lot of the women that have encouraged me, have offered their services with not expecting anything in return. I've been quite overwhelmed and quite emotional. I am an emotional person anyway, but I didn't expect to receive the love that I have in what I'm doing. So there's a few people. I've mentioned a couple already, but the owner of Nia Ballerina, she's been so useful with her advice towards what I'm doing. A lady that owns somewhere called S.Spa on Instagram, offering her services just for the well-being of myself and my daughter. Another lady called Latifa, offering her event planning services at Honey Rose Hayden is her event company, reaching out to me, encouraging, offering her services again. I've mentioned Pigment.Perfection already, who they have the same mission as Bianca and Friends, in empowering our young girls.
Yes.
There's another lady, American lady as well, called Neelam. She is a Black Muslim female rapper that raps about conscious stuff and raising our people. And she, as well as being amazingly talented, she has been so kind towards me as well, and promoted what I'm doing as well. So I've really learned that sisterhood is really well and alive, even if people think that it's not. It really is. So all of those women. Also, there's another UK company as well called Treasure Tress, owned by a lady called Jamelia. They've been really helpful as well in promoting what I'm doing, and I'm just really grateful to all of these women behind me. And there's been amazing men as well, but maybe I'll leave the men for our next talk.
Okay. I think you know what, I think all of these women that you mentioned deserve the applause, because yes, sisterhood is alive, even though mainstream media may report otherwise, or there may be shows that make us look like we're fragmented. We're more fragmented than we are. So I think, yes, let's definitely celebrate the sisterhoods that is supporting you on your journey with creating Bianca and Friends. So a huge round of applause to all those incredible women.
Definitely.
So we've come, looking at everything you've done and looking at where you are. In fact, I'm going to come back to that question, because you mentioned earlier about when you were younger, you loved to read, and as an adult, I'm one of those people that I'm very passionate about reading, and I always ask my guests, what are they currently reading, or what was the last book they read?
So I've recently finished, I'm a bit late, but I've recently finished Slay in Your Lane, which it again, so needed. If I had that book growing up, I would have been so prepared for the world. I would have been prepared for uni. I would have been, I would have felt like I wasn't alone in my struggle, kind of thing. So right. Slay in Your Lane is a must read, and for your daughters and nieces as well, for your children. As soon as my daughter's of age, I will be giving that book for her to read. So it's so important, books like this. So yeah, that was my last book that I wrote. Sorry, not that I wrote, I read.
Okay, so Slay in Your Lane, I will actually, I haven't checked that out yet, so you're not that late. I haven't even started.
Okay, no, you won't be disappointed, I promise you. It's really eye-opening, and also I would really recommend other people in other industries read it as well. Like, if you are a business owner and you employ Black women, or you're a dean at a university and you have Black young people attending your campus, it's so that this book is so eye-opening and gives a really articulate narrative about the struggles that young Black girls go through, because if you don't know and you don't understand it, this book will give you an insight into what Black women go through.
Okay. So I will check it out and definitely recommend others to do so as well, because I've heard great things about that book. We've talked about so much. We've talked about how you strive to create the Bianca mold, how it took you from the conception to actually physically creating her almost 2 years, or 2 years in fact, to actually get through that point. So how do you personally bounce back from setbacks? Because there were a series of setbacks when you were going through the creation process. How do you bounce back from those setbacks?
I've developed, I guess, a thick skin. I've had a lot of issues along this journey, and I think the thing with social media as well is you don't always, no one goes on there and says, do you know what happened to me today? Like this terrible thing. That doesn't really happen. You just see, the wins, and
yes.
And maybe it's something we need to do more. If something drastic has happened in the business, then maybe we should get onto social media and say, look, this has happened, and just to let people know that it's not plain sailing. So I find comfort in I have a really I'm really fortunate that I have a close, tight knit circle of friends who want nothing but the best for me. So when I'm having a low moment, they are really instrumental in picking me up. What I tend to do as well is, if a problem has happened, if I can't immediately fix it, then I try and go and do something that I like to do. Even if it's read a book, like try and take my mind off of the initial problem if it can't be fixed immediately, and then come back to it when I'm less emotional and less emotionally invested in it, because a lot of the time we can work ourselves up and then that in turn makes it harder to solve the problem. So I think sometimes taking yourself out of the problem and then revisiting it when you're more level-headed, that has definitely helped me. And my daughter, I always go back to my daughter, but she her encouragement along the way has been instrumental to me, to keep going as well. I recently had a parents' evening at her school, and the first thing her teacher said to me was that she is so proud of you, so proud of myself. She said she constantly talks about what you're doing with the dolls. Her whole class knows about the dolls. Her teacher knows, her head teacher knows, and sometimes I'll wake up and she's made a PowerPoint. One time she made a PowerPoint entitled "Why I'm Proud of My Mummy," and so knowing that she's there encouraging me and she's watching and taking everything in, I can't give up, because she is watching. So anything that comes my way, I'm like, what am I've had to think back to why am I doing this? What am I fighting for? What is our mission? And, reflecting on that, you can't give up, you have to keep going. And 99% of problems, can be solved.
You know what? I am in awe of Callie, your young CEO, and just so people really get a grasp of just how amazing this young girl is. How old is she again?
She's just turned 8, actually. Just a couple of weeks ago, she turned 8. Yeah.
So I know people that creating a PowerPoint will be a task for them. So the fact that she's out there creating PowerPoint slides of why she's proud of her mother is, to me, just phenomenal. So she sounds like she's an amazing character. She really is. I'm so proud of her, and everything that she stands for now. And what she'll do now as well. I remember one time we was in a park and she saw a little girl with her afro out. She had it out, and when we were about to leave the park, and she said, "Mummy, I need to go and tell that girl something." I was like, okay. So I kind of stood back and saw her run over, and she basically went over to tell the little girl how beautiful her hair was, because she knows how important that is now, and to have the confidence to go in and tell her as well. So I am super proud of her, and she keeps me going. Awesome. That is really amazing. So how can people connect with you and find out more about Bianca and Friends?
So we're on all social media platforms. We are on Instagram as Bianca and Friends. We are on Facebook as Bianca and Friends Dolls, and we're on Twitter as Bianca Dolls. Our website is www.biancaandfriends.com, and you can purchase our two dolls in a collection at the moment. So that's Natural Bianca and CEO Bianca.
Awesome. Okay, and we've been talking about Bianca and Friends. We've been talking about everything she stands for. So I guess my question is, if you had her in your life when you were the young CEO's age, how different do you think your life will be?
First of all, I wouldn't have been begging my mum to relax my hair at such a young age, and she did finally give in, and I think I relaxed my hair around year 7, so I would have been around 11 or 12, which was a disaster, and I thought it would change my life in school. I thought people would accept me. I thought I'd fit in, but it did the complete opposite, actually. So I think having Bianca in my life from earlier, I would have known that my hair was normal. It was nothing to be ashamed of. The dolls also come with a collectible card, and each one kind of details that doll's attributes and her traits. So, just reading those things. The cards also have positive affirmation on them, which I do daily with my daughter as well. So reminding her that she's proud of who she is, and and that she's strong, and she's worthy. If I'd grown up having those things around me, then I wouldn't have questioned anything when certain things were presented to me, if that makes sense.
Awesome. And I think, I think, like you rightly pointed, Bianca and Friends is not just for the children. Right now, I think for every Black woman needs to actually own one of the dolls, just to reconnect with her own inner child and say, this is for you as well. And I think there's a lot of power in what you're creating.
Thank you. I definitely agree. As I said, I have had adult customers, and there's actually a big adult doll collector community as well, which I knew nothing about before creating Bianca. So I think it's essential to always go back to that inner child. As I said before, that is a lot of where our insecurities, turmoil, even our beliefs come from. And a lot of the time we have to go back to that to really heal ourselves as the adult, So if those insecurities were formed as a child, that's where we need to go back to fix and to heal, and then come back out stronger and better.
Yes, I do agree. And my last question, Bianca versus Barbie on the fashion runway. Who rules?
Bianca every day, obviously. As I said, I love designing and stuff as well. So she's going to have some really popping outfits coming shortly as well. So yeah, watch this space.
Okay. So thank you so much for being on the show, folks. It's a wrap. We have just concluded with the CEO and founder of Bianca and Friends, the doll that Charlotte Francis created to help remind her daughter that she was amazing and whole and complete, exactly the way she is. And it's not just for her daughter, it's for other young girls, for them to see themselves as the princesses they are, to grow up as the queens of tomorrow. So join me again and welcome, and no, not welcome, but thank my incredible guest, Charlotte Francis.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing, and that this message needs to get out there. So thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
You were so welcome. So folks, it's a wrap, and join us same time, same place next week, Wednesday at 8 p.m. and also next Saturday. So catch you all then.
You've been listening to The Shine Out Loud Show. If you want to connect with us or let us know what you thought of today's show, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Shine Out Show.